This last chapter deals with miscellaneous topics and tips that I think are important but didn't rise to the level or length to warrant their own separate chapter. Some rims are drilled so that the up and down holes are drilled at different angles. An example of this is the head Belgium rim intended for the rear wheel. This is the rim we'll be looking at in the next few graphics. This is a head Belgium rear rim, and there is the valve hole, and you can see that on either side of the valve hole I've inserted an 11/64 inch rod. With maybe a little less precision, I could have also used a couple of chopsticks. Most rims have a stagger pattern where the rim holes are alternately drilled, so half of them slope up and half of them slope down, so that the nipple coming out of the rim will be aiming for one flange or the other. Here we see the slant, and if that is the center line of the rim, then those angles there represent the number of degrees that the hole is either sloping up or sloping down. In most cases, those angles are the same. For some head Belgium rims, those angles are not the same. Here is a rear rim with the two rods inserted into it. Here is a better view when I'm looking straight across the rim. Let's zoom in on this part here. When I do, I can see that this rod here representing a drive side spoke is angling for the drive side where the angle is steep. On the other side, this rod representing a non-drive side spoke is angling out at a wider angle. So the rear rim and hub will have the orientation shown here. If you put the hub in backwards, then you're taking a really nice structural feature of this rim and making a problem. The R on the head Belgium rim means that this is a rim that is intended to be used in a rear wheel. It's a rear rim with 28 holes. This, on the other hand, is a rim that has symmetrical drilling. You can see that the rods are angling out the same amount in either direction. This is a rim that is intended to be used in a front wheel on a road bike. It's going to be a front wheel with 24 spokes. Get yourself a couple of 11/64 inch rods or a couple drill bits the same size or a pair of chopsticks, and what I've shown you will become very easy to see. This tip deals with how to deal with rims that are joined at the seam with a sleeve. Here's a 32 spoke wheel made up with a nice Velocity Deep V rim, and the valve hole is there. Opposite the valve hole is the seam. This is a cross section of a different type of Velocity rim, but you can clearly see that the rim section on the right is where the sleeve is that joins the two ends of the hoop at the seam, and the rim is thicker where the seam is located. Here we see a close-up of where the seam is located and two holes on either side of the seam, and also where the sleeve is located. You can clearly see that the sleeve extends past those two holes on either side of the seam. Perhaps with the aid of a flashlight, you can easily see that the rim is thicker here and here at this hole than it is at this hole or any other hole on the rim. If I put some nipples into the rim, I find that the two nipples on either side of the sleeve come through the rim about that far, but the other nipples, such as this one on the right, come through the rim farther. And that is simply because the two nipples on either side of the seam start further back inside the rim because of the thickness of the sleeve. As the number of holes in the rim that you might be using decreases, for example, 32, 28, 24, 20, I believe in the case of the 20-hole rim, the location of the holes is beyond the range of the sleeve. Now that you know what to look for, it's an easy observation to make. If you do not account for what I've just explained, then the two spokes on either side of the seam will become too tight and have a higher tension than all of the other spokes because the nipple starts further inside the rim and you'll have a hop at that point. Assuming you're going to start your tensioning and you've just gotten all of your spokes to the same starting point using a Holy driver, and perhaps you're going to put 2 turns on every nipple. For these 2 spokes here, skip 1.5 turns, and that will equate them and take into account what I've just described for those 2 spokes on either side of the seam. After you've done that once, then you can treat all the spokes the same. What I've been describing to you with respect to velocity rims is also true of any other rim where the ends of the hoop are joined with a sleeve. It's always a good idea to check to make sure there's no additional thickness in the holes on either side of the seam. Some of the hubs I like to use are Chris King hubs. They're certainly beautiful hubs and very well known. There's one peculiarity of using those with DT Swiss spokes, though, that I found sometimes to be problematic. Sometimes if you put the spoke in and then you want to straighten the spoke out, I've found sometimes that the head of the spoke contacts the hub and prevents the spoke from fully being able to make a turn and straighten out. And I'm going to show you some close-ups of this and what I think you can do as a workaround. These 2 spokes are the same gauge. They're both double-butted 14, 15, 14 gauge spokes. The top one is a DT Swiss competition spoke, and under that is a Supreme race spoke. The neck here of the DT Swiss competition spoke measures to me about 3 millimeters, and the neck on the Supreme race spoke measures about 3.5. It's about a 0.5 millimeter longer, and that makes the difference apparently with some of the Chris King hubs of the spoke being able to make that bend. So I think that not only the race spoke but the CX-ray spokes work pretty well with those Chris King hubs. With this Chris King hub and the DT Swiss competition spoke, sometimes the competition spoke will not be able to swing up. Whereas if I use a Supreme race spoke, the little bit bigger neck allows it to do that. This is not a criticism at all of the Chris King hubs. It is just a consideration maybe of which spokes to use. When you're truing a wheel, try this technique here. I sometimes will take a spoke like this and use this to stick into one of the calipers to disable it, so I'm only working on one side of the wheel at one time. You can try that and see if that helps you. As I spin the wheel, notice how the wheel tends to bump out there to the right and another place at the left. Sometimes it's confusing if you're looking at both calipers at the same time. What I will often do in a situation like that is to put a spoke into the left caliper to disable it or get it out of the way, and then focus on the wheel bumping out to the right. Work on the right side and then move the spoke and disable the other caliper and then work on the left side. You can try that and move from side to side rather than using both calipers at the same time. You can see how I've inserted a spoke to move that left caliper out of the way. You certainly don't have to do this, but you might try it if you haven't yet. I've made a number of videos that I put on my YouTube channel, and some of these amplify considerably some of the topics in this DVD. Take a look at the following listing of videos on the YouTube channel and see if any of these look interesting to you. These are some of the chapters on my YouTube channel. Head Belgium rim hole drillings, velocity A23 off-center rims, the rotational energy of a bicycle wheel, rim wear measurement, park tire levers, bicycle hub friction, eccentric wheels, bicycle aerodynamic drag, and then the Supreme spoke death-defying demonstration. That's what was on my YouTube channel at the time I made this video. By the time you look at it, there probably will be more.